Hello there, many thanks for joining us on our Friday Business News Report. We now begin the business news feature today, focusing on the currency and cryptocurrency market as Geeta Gopinath, the first Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, says economic sanctions imposed on Russia as a result of its invasion of Ukraine will decrease the dominance of the US dollar. She also says the Russia-Ukraine crisis would also increase the adoption of digital finance, including cryptocurrencies, stable coins, and central bank digital currencies. And now joining me now virtually to discuss this and much more from the United Kingdom, I have Benga Onifade, Startup Manager, Wealth Hackers. Thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning, Mr. Onifade.
Good morning.
Now, looking at the Western sanctions on Russia and restrictions on its central bank, this has forced the country to shift from the US dollar to cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. Now, we had reports where Russia even agreed to accept cryptocurrencies in payment for oil and natural gas trade with its allies. Now, to what extent do you see this development, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, now push up the performance of cryptocurrencies and also the adoption of CBDCs?
Right. So just get to the background. We all aware now that Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February. And as a result of that, there has been sanctions levied on them by the United States and its allies, thereby, stifling or, restricting their transactions in US dollars. So as a result of that, I think just about a week ago, Russia decided they will rather switch into a different kind of assets, and especially in payment for the natural gas. We all know Russia is one of the leading providers, exporter of natural gas to mainly European Union. So the main thing is this is going to be very difficult because, I think the key question or the key points here that Russia is looking to do is to focus, and he said it's with friendly countries, which is mostly Turkey and China. And of course, these guys can do huge numbers, huge volume because the ruble is in trouble. However, we do have a problem right there because these two friendly countries, if you think about them, Turkey, their currency is actually in trouble, and they have in fact been thinking about cryptocurrency aligned with Russia since last year. While on the other hand, with China, which is the yuan now, they actually did ban the cryptocurrency in China because it puts pressure on with the yuan. So that makes it very difficult, unfortunately. It's a threat, but difficult to, in theory, easy, but in reality, extremely difficult, and in this time to perform.
Okay, now, do you think this whole Russia-Ukraine crisis also has that sustaining element, especially for the fact of ensuring that we see in the long run a further decrease of the dominance of the US dollar, because this crisis definitely has brought a little bit of shake-up in terms of the dominance of the US dollar. Now, if this crisis continues far longer than anticipated, what do you think will play out, especially with regards to cryptocurrencies versus the dollarized global economy?
Sure. So speaking of the difficulty that this war can have on effects, I think if you think about one of the things is Ukraine, they were raising funds through cryptocurrency, and they raised funds through cryptocurrency. They were able to show up about 10 million in US dollars in cryptocurrency, and that makes it very easy because what are the advantages of crypto? It's transparent. It's transparent. You can move it anywhere you are in the world. All you need is a digital login, and you've got access to your funds. But what makes this extremely difficult in this case for Russia, and going forward with this conflict that's been going on, the longer this conflict goes on, I think the more pressure Russia will be on. If you think about it, number one, who are the major movers in cryptocurrency? It's still mostly the United Kingdom. United States of America, because you're talking about Coinbase. You're talking Binance. These are the big centralized exchanges. And one of the things they have actually done is they are tracking all transactions. I think just before the war, there was a couple in Manhattan that stole about $3 billion US dollars, alleged rather, and this was easily tracked by. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a United States crypto agency. They've actually have been at the forefront. One of the main things that makes this very difficult is, yes, I'm talking about transparency. There's a fingerprint with every transaction you make, and this can be, this can be tracked. I mean, in Russia, for example, there has been 24,000 IPs that's linked to Russia, which has been banned just to make sure they're not evading transactions as a result of it. So going forward, I still think it's going to be very difficult.
And talking about this difficult perspective you see playing out here, let's have your outlook for the second quarter of the year. We've already started the month of April already. And even for the rest of the year, looking at the performance and adoption of cryptocurrencies in Nigeria, along the West African corridor, and even continental Africa. Now, do you see more countries joining the race for their own central bank digital currencies? And how do you see the penetration of cryptocurrencies go further with this Russia-Ukraine crisis? Not necessarily having a timeline. Yes, we've had global responses in terms of peace talks and strategies, but we cannot say for certain when the crisis is going to be over. So now, what do you think this will play out in terms of the outlook? How do you think this will play out in terms of the outlook for the second quarter and third quarter? Nigeria is also one of those with the first central bank digital currencies. We had the e-Naira. Do you think other countries would also join in this race in continental Africa?
Sure, absolutely. So people have been studying what's been going on with the rollout of the of the e-Naira in Nigeria's situation, and I haven't been I wouldn't be able to say it's actually been much of a success, because right now the what's it called, the total downloads actually gone down, and the usability, despite the friendliness of it, it hasn't really been that successful. That's number one. Going forward as well, thinking about the state of the world doesn't, the markets, general market, the crypto market, the stock market does not like uncertainty. We don't know what's going on or when it's going to end. Russia-Ukraine war, of course, sanctions still being levied every day, attacks still being ongoing. So we don't know that. There's interest rates worldwide, which has sparked high-rise inflation with Nigeria. So there's a flight or fight risk, and people are flying onto cryptocurrency. Since the war started, cryptocurrencies actually surged about 7% initially that same day, but now it's surged about 30% in Bitcoin. So that surge again. So people are flying to these riskier assets. That's number two. Another thing is, what makes these things extremely possible? So we're looking at, again, on the Russian side, so, we're talking about, number one is technological barriers, which makes it impossible because they can easily track them and trace where these things are. Number two is what they call the market structure. So you have to do what they call the KYC, which banks have to verify to prevent money laundering. And again, you need your passport to get onto these exchanges. So that makes it difficult for Russia going on. So I think going forward, there will be a bit of a pressure, more pressure, because when Russia announced moving on to cryptocurrency, there was a surge in the currency. Same day went to 3-week high in the same day, really. But again, there's been more pressure, and it's actually been more use because the Russians are trying to avoid, if you think about the SWIFT, the global SWIFT had about 5 trillion transaction happening daily, while the whole crypto transaction in February only about 24 billion. So that's been monitored. If there's an excessive ramp in it, of course, then the government's going to put their eye on it. So in future, yes, people will think, okay, it might be an opportunity for them to move the money to cryptocurrency because they think Russians can't do it. But there's been a little bit of a rise because the Russian population, they're trying to avoid the ruble, which is actually going to paper now. But at the same time, they're trying to avoid and track the money into crypto, which provided a surge. But at the same time, going forward, I don't think that's enough to move the needle because when you look at the cryptocurrency as a result itself, it's moving in tandem in correlation with the stock market and with inflation all around us, with the world not knowing where it's going. I think the second quarter of the year is going to be another difficult journey, unfortunately.
It's definitely difficult for anybody to predict at this point in time, and the global economy is definitely also going through learning curves. We had the first hit, which was COVID, and now the Russia-Ukraine crisis. We're just learning now to adapt and maneuver and see what's the most sustainable way to deal with all of these realities. Thank you so much for your time on the Breakfast Show this morning. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Benga Benifade.
Thanks for having me, David. Thank you.